What's in the store today? Oh, you can still buy the Urza deck. I didn't know you could do that. I now own the Urza deck. That's fun. I mean, this is a fun deck. It does things and stuff. But you know, there are so many Old Boarder cards I feel like you could put in this and just make it better. I wonder what it would look like if I put those Old Boarder cards in. Hey, that's my literal in-paper commander deck. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Urza's Iron Alliance Old Boarder Only Upgrade. So this is a pre-con deck that I was shocked to see you could still buy on MidGo. And I have it in person. This is the pre-con that got me back into Commander. And I decided, hey, let's recreate it online. Now, I literally, that bit you just saw was real. I was just online and noticed that you could still buy the Brothers War Commander deck, and I figured, why not? I really enjoy it in paper. It'd be fun to have online as well. So what is this deck? This deck is all based around the Commander, Urza Chief Artificer. Now, I know it's silly to say this deck is all based around the Commander, but you and I both know you've seen decks that had nothing to do with the Commander, and they were just there to give you colors. So Urza, or Dadbot Urza, as I've been told, because apparently people think he has a dad bod in this photo. As somebody with perpetual dad bod since he was in middle school, I get it. He's a 4/5, he's a 6-drop, but he has affinity for artifact creatures, and as you can tell, this deck has so many artifact creatures. And in fact, even beyond that, at the beginning of every end step, create a 0/0 construct, which is insane. So you get 0/0 constructs that get +1/+1s, and they see themselves for all artifacts in play under your control. So this is just an artifact Old Boarder only deck, and you just want to keep pooping out these constructs and go swing into the moon. There's no combos, there's no infinites, there's no haha I win. It's Urza slowly but surely builds up a whole bunch of constructs and beats you in the face. So what did I do to this deck? So the basic version obviously doesn't have any moxes, and this actually has a bit of a sub-theme for legendary creatures. In fact, it originally came with an Urza's Ruinous Blast, which I guess for flavor purposes makes sense. But in a deck like this, where not everything you play is legendary, I actually wanted to get rid of it. But there are enough legendaries to still play Mox Amber and not have it be a problem. Also a Mox Diamond because I owned one in paper. In fact, if there is any expensive cards in paper that you see here, it's because I already own them. That also accounts for some of the weird things you'll see like in the mana base, where it has many true duels. It has Underground Sea, it has Tundra, it has Scrubland. However, there's only one fetch land, and that fetch land is Marsh Flats, because that's the only Old Boarder land I own in paper. Now, there is one card difference between my paper deck and this version of it, and that card is Arcane Sanctum. I don't play Arcane Sanctum in my deck. I replaced it for a Fabled Passage, because I do play enough basics to make that work, and Fabled Passage has a chance of coming into play untapped, as opposed to this card, which has a 0% chance of coming into play untapped. But I wanted to keep it 100% Old Boarder, even if it's not going to be 100% the deck I play in paper. So we put the Arcane Sanctum in, but other than that, this is just what I'm playing in paper. It does have some things that clearly I think you can kind of put something more powerful in. The Alea doesn't seem like it truly belongs anymore. I always have a hard time justifying Stanwell. He doesn't seem to do exactly, like, he looks like he'd be a really fun commander on his own, but once I figure out something better to put in for those, I'm obviously going to switch them out. But again, my rule is it has to be Old Boarder, and that's the only way you're going to get into this deck. So again, I could go through and tell you about all the many tips and tricks, but hopefully we just run into those in the gameplay. So if you're a fan of both Old Boardered cards and Commander, stick around, let's watch some games. Join me, won't you? All right. Oh, I won the die roll. Hooray. That finally breaks my streak of not winning die rolls on camera. All right, so I'm Urza. This is a commander with a partner, so 2 green things. Thalia and the Gitrog monster. We're going to see that a lot today. And a Zadra. Okay. I have 2 tap lands, a Citadel, and a Thought Vessel. I think we could do better than this. Stanwell might be interesting. The Whirler Rogue's a little slow, but it has plenty of lands in all of the colors. So I'm going to go ahead and try this. All right, I'm going to keep. Oh, we draw a Demonic Tutor. Might want to do something with that. We're just going to play the Plains to start and ship the turn. ahead and put a stop on my next main. Other than that, my opponents can do whatever they want. Oh, turn one player, just passing. Just passing. All right. Shadow Spear. So they're going to start gaining a bunch of life. This gives a whole bunch of thing +1/+1 counters, and this gives the thing a whole bunch of mana. We draw. So now we have all 3 pain lands. Good for us, man. Let me tell you. I can Demonic Tutor for Ornithopter of Paradise and get Urza out probably a little quick. Or I guess I could just get a Soul Ring. That means I don't actually have to cast it this turn. I could just cast Stanwell and ship. So Stanwell's an interesting card because in theory, it'll let me cast a whole bunch of artifact creatures. Thing about Stanwell is it doesn't seem to do that. It seems to show me a whole bunch of non-artifact creatures or things I can't cast and then put them to the bottom of my deck, whether I wanted them or not. Here comes some dragon fodder. It's like, I mean, I thought Zadra was like Spellslinger, but interesting that there's a dragon fodder. I haven't played against Zadra a ton. I played against Thalia quite a bit. It seems like Thalia and the Gitrog monster is quite the chocolate and peanut butter situation. The Godless Shrine, are they going to do something? Skrell's Hive. Okay, so a whole bunch of toxic going on. Like next turn, I can Demonic Tutor and I can go get my Soul Ring. And then the next turn I get Urza down. And getting Urza down is like the most important thing for this deck because it just gets so much value as turns tick on and on and on. Mana drain. I don't think that's where we're at because I'd have to counter a 3. Well, somebody might actually cast a 3-drop. So if I just play Adakar Wastes, then I swing in with Stanwell. Swing at the guy with the Hive. You get to look at a whole bunch of cards. Can't cast any of those right now. That's normally pretty common. And deal our opponent 3. If we had 1 more mana, we could have cast the Solemn, which would have been nice, but in reality, you and I know, we're hoping someone's going to drop a 3-drop so that we can mana drain it, so that we can play out Urza. Also, these guys have gotten the same plague that the other white border cards have. 7th edition was not black border. It was very white border. In fact, even online, it was very white border. But I guess that's changed. Kerr Keep. This is a token deck. Gutter Snipe. Well, as good as anything else to get rid of. So now we have our mana. We can go ahead and start yielding. Yeah, I get it. We get attack for 2 because we counted the guy's spell, which I get, but also it lets us play our Urza out, which is nice. And then we'll also have another, we'll put another pain land into play. All right, so there's the Might. Looks nothing like the Mights in the art, but I mean, I guess it's the body horror that the new Phyrexia is going for. Angled Florahedron, just playing out a dork. Sorry, Rotfrub bouncing one of their shocks, huh? So we'll play Urza, and then the next turn we can play Whirler Rogue. I mean, seems like we're gonna make our tokens real big, real fast. Plays out their commander. Add mana. When you spend this mana to cast a spell with 6 or greater, draw a card. So draw big things, put counters on things. Gotcha. All right, so we have all the colors at this point. So white, black, blue. We get to cast Urza. At this point, I mean, Stanwell's not a great blocker, so I'm just going to attack our friend who hit us. Put a whole bunch of useful things to the bottom of my deck. Yep, can't cast any of those. I love how Solemn managed to make it back to the top of my deck again, even though I don't recall shuffling my deck. How did Solemn get there again? What's going on? Not sure what that is. Solemn was in the first 6, right? All right, so here's my mighty 1/1. I guess I could have played the Ancient Den and it would have been a 2/2, but you know, we don't need to. Oh boy, we might get really hit if Old Mate has some Franco Mob Boss. It's a race, is it? It is very much a race. So I wonder if Cranko's like the secret commander. Didn't attack, all right. So far, we're getting away with it. I mean, the goblin tokens are really annoying because they exponentially grow, whereas ours are not exponential in their growth. But I don't think we might just take, when it gets to our turn, we'll see if we want to spend quite a bit of our mana and our tutor to get rid of it, truth be told. Because I can just Whirler Rogue and make my stuff super big and just really start hitting him, but I also feel like ignoring the Thalia player is probably not smart. Although the Thalia player seems to be working kind of slow on mana at the moment. Well, they didn't replay their shock, so they must have a second thing they want to do. Are they just playing Thalia? What's going on? Yeah, looking like they're just playing Thalia. So, first strike, Death Touch. You may play an additional land on each of your opponent's turn. Creatures with non-big land types enter tapped. That's annoying. That's very annoying. See, now we're in this level of Commander where everything, to quote the MTG guys, is an Avengers level threat. So do I just try and keep growing with everyone? I mean, I can demonic for a Wrath, but then next turn I'm gonna have to Wrath. All right, our opponent untaps. Now that there's a Thalia on the play, I guess it doesn't actually affect this player a ton because they're mono green, so there's not a ton of non-basics in their deck, I have to assume. Vine Trellis, a classic card if I ever saw one. Oh man, the creatures are going to come into play tap too? I suppose that actually keeps Krenko in check. Maybe I do just play out a whole bunch of stuff and leave all my stuff on defense. Rider's Harnessed, sure. Aethersworn Adjudicator. That seems like a good card. I don't think I get to cast it though, because that's going to come into play tapped, yeah. So I just get to play Whirler Rogue. I mean, it makes everything big. Main land's really hurting, but fun fact, shocks don't come in Old Boarder. So here we are. Whirler Rogue, spin me up a dream. Dream of not dying. Right. I'm just going to pass. I think the Aethersworn Adjudicator is going to do a good job at blowing stuff up, but at the same time, like, my board is growing as much as anyone else, and I have the Whirler Rogue that can make things unblockable if I super need to, but everything's growing just so fast. It's actually quite nice if I'm being honest. Perforos. Well, things got a lot less nice a lot quick. Just 2 per things? Yeah, no, we all take 6. That hurts. So Krenko, the Zadra deck, which is really a Krenko deck, is really going to take us to town unless we can remove it from the field. I'm hoping one of my opponents can do something about it so that I don't have to spend all of my time policing the table. But also, I am at the lowest life total, so that's a thing too. I guess he doesn't fly, so I can start picking in at him is the thing. All right, he gets his 3rd might. Now, these mites are now Birds of Paradise, but they can't block. Pretty sure the toxic thing has very little to do with anything. Parallel Lives. Oh dear. They're just getting... I really think I'm just gonna have to take a turn and get down Aethersworn Adjudicator and start blowing stuff up. First thing to blow up is definitely Krenko, because Krenko's gonna deal 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 damage to everyone. Again, when your life total is the lowest, that is not what you want to see. Yeah, attacking the Krenko player. Sounds good. Sacrifice one of their mites and draw a card? Exactly what they did. Well, again, I don't want to say, oh man, I'm so behind. My board is quite nice, truth be told, but I don't think it's a winning board, especially with my hand. I don't think this hand is a winning hand. I can't even just like Demonic Tutor for Ballas of Citadel and try and go for broke because I'm already at such a low life total. Also, I would have to sacrifice 40 permanents in over 4 turns in order to do that. So I don't think that's a thing. 3 to Amera, isn't that the combo thing? Just making another token, making 2 tokens. Ooh-wee, look at all the tokens. All right, Big Green. What do you have for us? What do you have that can solve this problem, Green? Green that's known for having wraths or any sort of removal if we're being honest with each other. What do you have that can solve the problem? You have your commander. You are clearly just trying to set up for future turns. So here comes your commander, comma, tapped. Oh, they have a second spell unless they're just equipping the Shadow Spear to one of their commanders. They're equipping it to the Vine Trellis? All right, it's clearly trying to make the wall pointy so the goblins don't come that way. Yep, equipping the Strider Harness. That's fascinating. I don't think they did much that turn. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I think we just play the Adjudicator and start trying to take stuff out because, like, either that or we Demonic Tutor for... So, we drew Generous Gift. That changes things. So on their upkeep, we're going to blow up the Krenko. So we have 2 mana. That means we can Demonic for something. Let's see if I could do a bluff. Just answer to... They don't need to know what I'm actually getting. That is a good thing, though. What am I actually? I guess I'm getting Worm Coil Engine because I'm at 25. I'm going to go get Worm Coil Engine. Then on our opponent's upkeep, back 1 there. One of our opponents has lost connection to the game. Back another 1 there. And just do those 2. So the Thalia player has lost connection, which is not great. I mean, it's fine because that means it's one less thing I need to worry about. All right, so on their upkeep, white, who cares? Who cares? Get rid of Krenko. They whale us all 1 more time. You know, I waited until their upkeep to do that so that the elephant wouldn't have haste, but I didn't realize it was also going to deal me 12 when I did that because I'm a silly, silly man. Hopefully the Worm Coil Engine can save my sorry butt, but that might have been quite the punt. Unfortunately, the captain, whoever, seems like he came back, but he hasn't done much yet. It's We fit it out. Yep. The guy came back, the Captain Quantum, but doesn't seem to be yielding priority because he lost connection and then he rejoined like 3 minutes ago. Has voted. Okay. All right, we got rid of the person who wasn't here, and now I get domed for 1 million. He also has 1 million goblins, which is going to be fun. So how do I do something about that? I don't actually know. I mean, again, I'm going to be swinging in with quite big stompers, and I'm going to get down Worm Coil next turn, which is also going to help, like, stabilize my life. But it doesn't actively stabilize my life is the thing. All right. What else you got? So I'm at 11. My opponents are 20. I don't see a way I'm going to be able to deal 23 damage to the Zada player. I mean, depending on what they play. Siege Gang Commander, even more Gabos A. I'm pretty sure I punted this one into the sun by not killing Franco at the right time, but we're all learning together. How'd I get to 3? I'm sorry. Oh, Siege Gang Commander. That's fun. That's super fun. All right, so I have to give up on quite a few of my things at this point. I don't want my... I'll give up Stamble. So how do we come back from this? I don't think the Worm Coil engine's gonna do it. I think at this point we just Master of Ethereum, swing it as hard as we can, take out 6 or like 9 tokens, and then just die in the crackback. Nope, the other guy just conceded. All right, alrighty then. Oh, or we'll draw a Wrath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. So we'll start with just attacking with everything. Whatever's left, we'll Wrath off the field. They could still just play 2 creatures and kill me, but this is me playing to my out here, right? Did they not block at all? Sure. Wrath it is. I have a 16-16. My opponent's at 5. If they just have 2 creatures, I die. Otherwise, I would have stolen this. They have the Zada, which puts me to 1, but they need to get a second red creature down. Please just play Zada. Okay, they're just playing Zada. That puts me to 1. If I can somehow... If I top deck a land, specifically a swamp, I win the game, because that'll give the Phyrexian Horror lifelink. So I need to top deck a untapped black source. Phooey. I have the mana to cast Urza, but my black source pings me, and I am at 1. So brutal. So best I can do is play out the Worm Coil engine, hope our opponent makes some sort of mistake. Any black source, we would have gotten it. All right, so I punted that one. That one was apparently in my grasp, and I just decided I was done playing. Whoopsie. Oh well, we'll do the big swing. They'll make a guy off a Kerkeep next turn. But that is why you need to pay attention to timing, folks, because sometimes you will just punch yourself into the sun, and that is clearly what I have done here. Oh well, I also have a surprise bonus game for you guys to see. So stick around for a game I previously played but did not record. All right, folks, see you in the wrap-up. Yep, they just activated Kirk. Hi, everybody, and welcome to an interesting game, too. So this is a game where I wasn't recording, but it was so cool that I've decided to show it off in the video anyway. So we're going to try and go through a replay of this video with me giving a little bit of commentary. Now, the thing is, I haven't done this with a 4-player game before. You've seen me do it with a 2-player game, and also, normally when I do these recaps, they're just after the game occurred. This game occurred a couple of days ago, but it's so cool I wanted to show it to you guys. And hopefully, any of you who are sticking around after the live episode will enjoy this as well. Let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to try and keep up with things as they go along here, only because the first couple of turns of this one is pretty short. We have an Atarka player, a Thalia player, a Muldrotha player, and of course, I am on Urza. So here we have Atarka, here we have Thalia and the Gitrog monster, and here we have Muldrotha. So the early games, as you expect, it's a mix of people playing tap lands, it's a mix of people playing, one drops like the guy playing Muldrotha is about to play a expedition map. But really, when I'm at this stage in this Commander game, I see a literal precon, I see somebody brewing around the new Thalia, which to me looks scary, and I see a Muldrotha, which always looks scary. Then again, the Urza precon, as you will see or have already seen in previous gameplay, has the ability to be scary when it wants to. So the turn comes back around to us at this point, and we drop down the Ornithopter Paradise. Now, Ornithopter Paradise is an amazing card in this deck because it essentially is 2 mana when you're trying to cast Urza, it itself being an artifact creature, as well as producing a mana itself. I'm feeling pretty good about my start at this point because everyone else just seems to be either ramping, or for example, with our opponent with the Expedition map and Secure Tribe Elder, the next guy is about to play an Arcane Signet. There it is. And finally, we hand over to the Atarka player, who is simply shipping the turn. Now, I run out of Baleful Strix because it's a redraw and it allows me to play out Urza even easier. Urza having affinity for artifact creatures is a little broken, especially when it reduces the commander cost. Again, our opponent is just getting his ramp and getting his specific stuff on. He seems to have Expedition mapped for Command Beacon, which is an interesting thing to go look for with your tutor, but fine by me. Now, the Thalia player is about to get a turn 3 4 mana commander. The problem is I have a Swords to Plowshare and an Ornithopter of Paradise, and I decide whatever Thalia does, I don't want to learn. I'm just going to put that back into the command zone. On turn 3, the Atarka player finally has something to do and plays out a Dromodic Disciple, which will do something scary on turn 7. It comes back to us, and I am feeling great. Because Urza comes down, I have 2 creatures in play that are artifacts, and I have an artifact land. So the construct that's about to get pooped out is a 4/4. Muldrotha, one off from being able to play Muldrotha, decides to play a Culling Ritual. Hilarious. I lose pretty much all of my stuff except for Urza, and then he plays a Plaguecrafter, and I don't get to keep that either. Now that does mean, had I not Swords to Plowshare, Thalia would have died anyway, but you don't know what you don't know. Speaking of stuff I don't know, our opponent played a Wall of Mulch. Never seen this card before in my life. Our opponent plays a Staff of Completion. I decide to fetch at this point just to make sure I don't forget, and so that I can pass the turn, and they start drawing cards based on their life, because, hey, that's what you do in a life gain deck. Our opponent on the Atarka side finally plays out a Scary Thing, which is a big-ish dragon that whenever it becomes a target of anything, it deals 3 damage to the opponent who targeted it. I decide to put out my big Stompy at this point because he's indestructible, and even though he has to attack every turn, there's really no danger of him going away unless somebody wants to exile the 5/5. At this point, I'm expecting my opponent to play out Muldrotha, but they don't. They play out Intuition. I would have thought you would have played out Muldrotha and hoped it survived one turn. Then again, I'm a terrible commander player, and just keep looping. Let's pause here for a second. And keep looping the Plaguecrafter, but something worse happened. He played Intuition and he targeted Big Jim. As you can see here, Big Jim is literally playing a Precon. Now, this Precon is even the lower price Precon. It's the entry level one, so that's probably why the person got targeted. And they put in Fleshbag Marauder, Demon's Disciple, and Stasis. And the Atarka player decided to give the Muldrotha player Stasis. They had a Forsaken City in play, so if you've never seen this, the way this works is, at the beginning of every turn, they exile a card from their hand, they get to untap Forsaken City, which gets around Stasis, and then we never get to untap ever again. Now, this is where the game starts to get interesting, because I can pretty much talk as much as I want. Now, you'll see a little bit of discourse happening here, where I said, "Aw man, no more playing the game," at which point the Thalia player says, "Bold of you to expect to be playing the game." I correct him and said no. I said no, and pretty shortly the dude is just going to scoop outright. A lot of people don't like Stasis, I fully understand, but at this point, I was just trying to see if I could find my way out of this. So yeah, I have the Darksteel Juggernaut, which is going to be able to get in one attack before it proceeds to do nothing. So I decided to waste one of my precious mana to play a Skull Clamp to make it a 4/4, swing at him. I don't know why I thought he was going to block with Wall of Mulch, but he didn't. At which point, the Thalia player scoops, they're out of here. They don't have any interest in dealing with any of this anymore, and it's down to me, the player playing the 100% Old Boarder Urza deck, a guy playing a literal beginner Precon, and somebody who stasis locked the table. Well, you'll notice something interesting about the guy who stasis locked the table. Every time he wants to keep stasis going, considering he just played a land for reasons I'm not entirely sure about, he has to exile the only card in his hand. At this point, I reckon, if I'm able to get Urza into the field, then I'm going to poop out another construct that can attack him every turn, and he'll have to give up on the stasis, and at which point I'm going to have a whole bunch of cards in hand. He's not going to have anything in his hand now. He will have Muldrotha, but he's going to have to cast Muldrotha. Muldrotha never made it out yet. So I figure there's a chance I can get out of this. Now, during this moment, I do ask the player, hey, why'd you give him Stasis Lock? Even though that's kind of rude of me, I kind of knew why I gave him Stasis Lock. He gave him Stasis Lock because clear he's never seen the card Stasis before. I still just keep finding mana that I'm trying to save up to my commander towards. Having 2 blue mana isn't the most helpful, but hey, it's better than nothing. While our opponent continues to just viciously pitch things into their exile zone to keep the stasis up. Now, I'm pretty sure what they're trying to do here is... I don't know what they're trying to do here, because it's not actually accomplishing anything other than allowing your opponents to have a slightly better chance of winning the game by keeping the stasis lock going, considering that the opponent playing Atarka is continuing to play lands and is going to play big dragons, and I continue to draw stuff that will hopefully get me out of this. Again, I punt so often, I'm surprised I wasn't drafted into the NFL, but I don't see what the Muldrotha player is getting out of this, because everything's going into exile. It's not going into the bin. So maybe they're waiting for something specific, or perhaps something to do. They always do have a redraw with Wall of Mulch. Now, the Atarka player finally realized there's no more game to be had here, and it's not like I said out loud, oh wait, we can just sit here and do this all day, because our opponent's not actually gaining an advantage. Nothing going into his bin for Muldrotha to pull out. Now, as we can see, there's already quite the smorgasbord of scary things in the bin. But, I've had worse situations. Again, I'm drawing lands. I still have stuff. It's not like my Darksteel Juggernaut's going anywhere. So it's just a fun game of draw go at this point. But I would like to remind you that this game started with a Thalia player who salted out and a Tarka player who salted out. And now we have Brian, who's playing a gimmick deck, versus a Muldrotha player who stasis locked the table. Now, I hope this also shows everybody why you should never just scoop, especially in a commander game, because you don't know what's going to happen. It might feel hopeless, but trust me, it's not. Now, here's where I make a mistake, is I decide to play a Solemn Simulacrum. I'm not sure why. I mean, I had the 4 mana, and maybe I was like, hey, let's play out Solemn and pull more lands out of our deck, so we'll get less untapped lands to cast Urza. But this is really just a game of draw go at the moment, and as you can tell, I'm getting dangerously close to 7 cards in hand. I find my Exotic Orchard. I decide, you know what? Why bother having a land that could tap for a whole bunch of colors of mana when I can have an untapped island and simply ship the turn? Now, as I recall, this kind of goes on unbroken until I have 7 cards in hand and I start discarding cards. But again, the game's grinding to a halt. I don't know if this guy thinks that I'm just going to salt off, that I'm just going to scoop any moment now, when clearly I've decided I have something to play for, or in the very least, I have nothing but free time. So welcome back to the point where I'm about to draw my 8th card, and here's really where I realized I made a mistake, because had I not played Solemn Simulacrum, I could have played Thopter Spy Network and could have started getting 1/1/1 Thopter per turn and at least started dealing some damage that way. However, our opponent saw that we were starting to discard and decided to let Stasis go. Now, the thing about Stasis is I get an untapped step before they get an untapped step. So I untap with roughly 1,000 mana, and I decide, hey, let's go, and here comes Urza. Now, the opponent is still at 33. I play Thopter Spy Network to get not 1 but 2 tokens per turn, and finally play out Ethereum Sculptor, not necessarily in the wrong order, because I wasn't playing any other artifacts anyway. Now, my Darksteel Juggernaut has to attack, but I figure throw in the Solemn Simulacrum anyway, because I'm a silly person. Now, even sillier, my opponent didn't block before killing the Wall of Mulch. Not sure what that was, but hey, I'll take the extra free damage. Now, at this point, what I was expecting the opponent to do was untap everything, play Muldrotha, and like replay the stasis, but that doesn't actually make a ton of sense because I did so much on the turn I was allowed to untap. Then I get the joke. They play out Pernicious Deed, which means they're going to wipe my board again, as seen here by doing it in their end step. Now, you'll remember though, Darksteel Juggernaut doesn't die, and we get to draw one off of Solemn Simulacrum. So we pay roughly 4,000 mana, and just put Urza back out because I still expect him to try and stasis me again. So as long as I can get the token production up and running, I figure I actually have this game in the bag. I smack him around for 4 with the Darksteel Juggernaut. I proceed to play out another Construct token and simply discard, giving up on the Mox Diamond because I have no lands in hand. Muldrotha finally shows up, and I was expecting like Stasis, I was expecting Plague Crafter. They just decide to go for a Chord of Calling for 1 and get a Spore Frog, which kind of makes sense. So at this point, I need a new plan, but I have Demonic Tutor, which allows me to get anything, including Bolas's Citadel. So now I could just put a million things on the field. He's at 19. If I can get 20 permanents, I could just kill him that way. I go to combat to see if he's going to do anything weird with his Spore Frog, and he just does exactly what I'm expecting him to and pops it. And I pass the turn because I have a Plains on top of my deck, and Bolas's Citadel, while it lets you play lands off the top of your deck, you can obviously only play 1 land per turn. Spore Frog comes back, as does Pernicious Deed. Now, I don't understand why my opponent just didn't pop Deed right now. I guess they were worried about the fact that the Spore Frog was going to die, and they were going to take quite a bit off the Darksteel, but at this point, he's just giving me plenty of things I can sacrifice to my Bolas's Citadel. So I get to untap, and at this point I'm like, okay, we'll see how long it takes him to destroy my stuff. So I get all the way down to getting my Noxious Gearhulk down and targeting the Muldrotha. I get to gain some life. I start realizing how bad Bolas's Citadel is in my deck because everything I'm playing costs roughly 1,000 mana. But, you know, we're still going, we're still swinging. And at this point, if you count, we have the 10 things on the table needed to smack our opponent around. And either they're going to take a lot of damage via the Bolas's Citadel, or what they really should do is nothing, take some damage off the Bolas's Citadel, go to 9, and then continue to Spore Frog loop us. I'm not entirely sure why in a moment they decide it's in their best interest to, oh, because I forced them to with Angel of Runes. Now I remember. So I play Angel of Runes, which is going to target their Pernicious Deed, which means they have to pop it now. However, with Psy going off, I have so many things I can sacrifice in order to dome my opponent for 10, which is what I spend my time doing. Pretty much anything that's not Urza or the Darksteel Juggernaut or the Citadel itself is open game. Mostly I sacrifice tokens at this point. My opponent is down to 8. Does anyone remember the fact that this was a 4-player game at one point? Because I was having a real hard time thinking of it. I play a 1 with the machine and draw 6 cards. Feels good, not gonna lie. However, I don't believe I have anything that lets me... Oh no, I have a Thought Vessel, so I do get to keep my hand. So our opponent has to kill us now, or blow up the Citadel now, and they choose a Sylvan Scrying. I'm not entirely sure why. They play out a Field of the Dead, which is a little scary, but I was confused until they played the Diabolic Intent to go get something, and then I was like, oh, they must have gotten a Wrath. A Wrath would really do us in, but then they just kind of passed the turn, and I kept expecting something to happen. Obviously, I don't want to play Austere Command, I just want to get 10 artifacts or 10 non-land permanents in the field, and I play out my Whirler Rogue, and I believe on the Whirler Rogue stack, he tries to pull something in Cyclonic Rift. However, Bolas's Citadel is at instant speed, so I simply sacrifice 10 things at instant speed and win this game. Now, this was a very hard-fought win. I felt real good about it, not going to lie. And it was just such an interesting way to win the game with the second line of text in Bolas's Citadel. Also, the 2 players salting off is funny to me, that I wanted to share it with you guys. Hopefully it's a decent enough bonus game too, and let's go ahead and head to the wrap-up of this whole Urza deck experience. You there? There we have it, everyone. A two-game video, where 1 game I pulled it out of nowhere and won, and 1 game where I punted it into the sun and could have had a legitimate chance of winning. But hey, this is Commander, this is my casual format, this is how we learn. So This is another thing I love about Commander. I have my relatively strong, I'm not going to pretend like it isn't playing just totally and completely degenerate stuff, because it clearly is, but it's fun, and it's a theme. It's 100% Old Boarder, and it's not just the base deck. Now, if we do look at the base deck, which is here, and then we do look at my version of the deck, not a ton changes. It actually keeps quite a bit of the pre-con, but I would be the biggest liar on the planet if I said this deck is anywhere near the power level of the old deck. The old deck is much weaker than this one. It has true duels, for God's sake. But this is the creativity of Commander, and I had games I enjoyed, I had games where I punted, I had games where I don't enjoy, and that's the brilliance of it. Hope you guys are liking some of these Commander series. I know most of you are here for Modern. If you're here all the way at this part of the video, congratulations, you're part of the 3% of people who make it this far, and thank you very much. If you have anything you want to see me try and play, go ahead and email me at HeyDummyPlayThis@gmail.com. That's HeyDummyPlayThis@gmail.com, and I will see you guys in the future for the next one. Later.